The clock on Dr. Maya Johnson's dashboard read 11:27 p.m. as her white Toyota Highlander rounded a gentle curve on County Road 47. Behind her, cicadas droned in the summer heat, and the distant hum of crickets filled the humid Georgia night. Maya's eyelids felt heavy after a grueling 12-hour shift in the ICU, her dark scrubs still faintly scented of antiseptic and lavender from the soap station. Outside, the beam of her headlights danced across swaying kudzu vines climbing the telephone poles, reflecting off the cracked asphalt. As she slowed to peer at a half-buried speed limit sign, its letters faded almost beyond recognition, a pair of red and blue strobes burst to life in her rearview mirror. "Great," she murmured, pressing gently on the brake pedal. Heart thumping, she guided the SUV onto the narrow shoulder, gravel scattering beneath the wheels. She exhaled slowly, tipping her head to switch on the interior dome light. "Sheriff's office," she reminded herself, reaching into the console for her license and medical ID. Outside, the harsh click of the patrol car door rang out. Sheriff Willard Hayes emerged under the halo of his flashlight, his crisp uniform gleaming even at this hour. His face was set in a stern expression, the brim of his hat casting a shadow over his narrowed eyes. "Evening, ma'am," he called, voice firm. He approached the driver's side, flashlight trained on her face. "Do you know why I stopped you?" He tapped the cracked windshield with a pen, an obvious pretext, but one loaded with implication. Maya lifted her hands, palms up in a gesture of peace. "No, Sheriff. Was there a problem with my vehicle?" He inhaled, his gaze flicking to her hospital badge pinned to the dashboard. "Your windshield's got a crack that runs the length of the glass. That's a violation of state code. I'm going to need your license, registration, and proof of insurance." Maya's pulse quickened, not out of fear but frustration. She retrieved her documents in deliberate calm. "Of course." She handed over her driver's license first, then the laminated medical ID. "I apologize for the crack. It happened during last week's storm. I've already scheduled a repair." Hayes glanced from her license photo to her hands, then to the ID card that identified her as Dr. Maya Johnson, MD, St. Mary's Hospital. His lips pressed into a thin line. "Hospital ID doesn't exempt you from traffic laws." She offered her registration and insurance card next, her voice steady but edged with steel. "I understand, Sheriff. I'm happy to correct it. Just didn't want to miss any critical pages in the repair manual." She maintained eye contact, refusing to shrink from the undercurrent of doubt in his gaze. He flipped through her paperwork, each rustle of paper magnified in the night air. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I've had reports of medical staff speeding through these back roads to get home after call." His tone was casual, "Just doing my job." But the implication was clear. A black woman doctor was suspect until proven otherwise. Maya bristled but kept her composure. "I drive responsibly, Sheriff. I wouldn't jeopardize my license or my patient's trust." She paused, letting the silence press on him. "If you need to verify my credentials, you're welcome to call St. Mary's." The sheriff's jaw twitched. He looked at her for a long moment, then back at the crack in her windshield. The tension hung thickly between them, a charged gulf of unspoken stereotypes and quiet dignity. Finally, he closed his notebook with a soft snap. "I'll be on my way. But get that windshield fixed by the end of the week, or I'll have to write the citation." He handed back her documents without a word of apology. As the patrol car's taillights receded, Maya sat for a heartbeat, hands gripping the steering wheel. The night swallowed the red and blue glow, leaving only the steady throb of her racing heart. She exhaled, adjusted her rearview mirror, and reminded herself, this was just the beginning. Tonight's encounter would reverberate far beyond a cracked windshield. It was the first step in her mission to confront prejudice with professionalism, compassion, and unwavering resolve. Dr. Maya Johnson eased the Highlander back onto County Road 47, taillights fading into the warm glow of the sheriff's cruiser's red and blue filaments. Relief surged through her chest, until she noticed Sheriff Willard Hayes clutching his notepad with a deliberate air of finality. He strode toward her window, pen poised above the citation form as though it were an executioner's blade. "Before you go, ma'am," he said, voice measured and low, "I'm going to have to cite you for a cracked windshield under Section 4014-320. He flipped the notebook open, the yellow pages rustling like uneasy whispers, and began filling in her details: name, license number, date. With each deliberate stroke of his pen, Maya felt the weight of unspoken judgment. Her credentials meant nothing here. She rolled down the window, paper and pen extending toward her, but refusing to snap shut. The humid Georgia air wafted in, carrying the scent of kudzu and asphalt. Her heart beat a steady rhythm beneath her scrubs. Her voice remained calm when she spoke. "Sheriff Hayes," she began, using his name to anchor the exchange in civility. "I understand the law, but I cannot, in good conscience, accept this citation." Hayes paused mid-stroke. His dark eyes flicked up to regard her, surprise rippling across his weathered features. The moonlight skirted the edge of her medical ID badge, which lay beside her on the dashboard. "Excuse me?" he asked, pen hovering. Maya took a breath, the hush of the night amplifying her words. "I'm a physician, on call at St. Mary's Hospital. My patients rely on me. A fine will delay my windshield repair, which is already scheduled for Thursday." She pressed her hands flat against the steering wheel, fingertips grazing the crack that snaked across the glass. "More importantly," she continued, "I feel that I've been treated unfairly tonight. I showed you my medical credentials. You questioned their authenticity. You implied I was reckless on the road. That implication stung more than any citation." The sheriff's jaw clenched. For a moment he studied her face, and then he looked away toward the darkened tree line. His pen scratched a faint circle on the paper, as though it were an afterthought. "Obstruction of justice isn't taken lightly, doctor," he murmured. "If you refuse to sign, I'll have to arrest you for obstruction." Maya leaned forward, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I'm not refusing to sign," she corrected him, voice unwavering. "I'm requesting respect. If you believe I'm speeding or endangering others, call dispatch. Verify my hospital on-call status. I've spoken with your dispatcher before. Deputy Cruz knows I'm on call around midnight." She tapped the side of the dashboard, where her phone sat, its screen dim but ready. "If you'd like, I can call St. Mary's right now and patch you through." For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The surrounding woods absorbed the sound of cicadas, the only observers to this standoff. Finally, Hayes lowered his pen, closing the notebook with a soft but deliberate snap. He crossed one arm over his chest, the other holding her citation form. "Call them," he said gruffly, voice laced with reluctant concession. Maya retrieved her phone, navigating to the hospital operator's number with practiced fingers. As she dialed, she felt a surge of quiet triumph. By insisting on transparency, she was forcing him to confront the gap between his authority and her professionalism. The line clicked open. A voice answered, "Saint." Mary's hospital operator. "Hello?" Maya said crisply. "This is Dr. Maya Johnson in the ICU. I need to confirm my on-call status with Deputy Cruz of the Sheriff's Department." She handed the phone to Hayes, whose eyes softened slightly as he listened to the operator's factual confirmation. After a moment, he handed the phone back, rubbing the bridge of his nose. He unfolded the citation and, with a curt motion, tore it in two. The fragments fluttered to the gravel shoulder like defeated autumn leaves. Without meeting her eyes, he said, "Drive safely, doctor, and get that windshield fixed." Then, with a stiff nod, he retreated to his cruiser and melted into the night. As Maya watched the cruiser's taillights blink out, she exhaled a breath she didn't know she was holding. The crack in her windshield remained, and so did her resolve. Unwilling to let this episode stand as the last word, she sent a brief text to Deputy Cruz. "Thank you for your help tonight. I plan a community wellness event next month and would appreciate the sheriff's support." In that simple act, she planted the seed of collaboration that would, in time, mend far more than a damaged pane of glass. Dr. Maya Johnson's Highlander hummed along the quiet county road, the cracked windshield a constant reminder of the night's earlier confrontation. As the moonlight danced across the glass, her thoughts drifted back to the first time she felt the sting of doubt in her chosen profession. It was during her second year of medical school at Clayton University. Maya sat in a lecture hall, rows of seats ascending like the tiers of an amphitheater. The professor, a white man in rimless glasses, was mid-lecture on differential diagnoses for acute chest pain. Maya raised her hand with confidence. She had spent hours poring over case studies, mapping out the subtle distinctions between pericarditis, myocardial infarction, and aortic dissection. When called upon, she stood and offered her well-rehearsed analysis, quoting precise EKG changes and lab value thresholds. A ripple of polite applause followed, and then from the back row, a murmur, "Must be reading from Cliff's Notes." Maya felt her cheeks flush beneath the fluorescent lights. The professor gave her a thin smile but moved on, as though her answer was expected but not fully earned. Later in the hallway, a white classmate approached her. "You did well up there," he said, voice smooth, "for someone who probably didn't grow up around this sort of thing." The words were soft, but their implication cut deep, that her intelligence was an anomaly, rather than the result of her own labor. Years later, during her surgical rotation, Maya found herself in the intimidating confines of Riverside General's operating theaters. She scrubbed in beside a renowned cardiothoracic surgeon, Dr. Spencer, a man whose reputation for exacting standards was matched only by his impatience with mistakes. When the time came to suture a small arterial incision, Maya's hands were steady, her knot tying practiced to precision. She finished the stitch cleanly and stepped back. Dr. Spencer examined her work, then rubbed his chin. "You've done this before," he grunted. Most med students fumble at this stage. Maya's heart beat in her throat as he removed her sutures and tied them again more tightly. "But don't get cocky," he added, not meeting her eyes. "Technique is everything." Though he praised the final result, the earlier implication lingered, that her competence was unexpected, even suspicious. In the hush of her memories, Maya saw a turning point. Her mentor, Dr. Ellen Patterson, pulling her into a small consultation room lined with medical journals. Patterson was one of the few senior black surgeons on staff, her presence a beacon of possibility. "I've heard the whispers," she said gently, placing a reassuring hand on Maya's shoulder. "Ignore those who doubt you. Excellence will turn their heads, but your integrity must guide your hands." She slid a small, embossed notebook across the desk. "Write down every moment you overcome doubt, both theirs and your own. One day, this will remind you who you truly are." Maya's memories shifted to her residency interview at St. Mary's Hospital. As she waited in a crowded lounge, other candidates chatted about board scores and research publications. When her name was called, she walked into an austere conference room where a panel of white physicians stared at her resume. One interviewer asked, "Your research on health disparities is interesting, but do you really want to work in a community hospital?" The subtext was clear, that her scholarship on underserved populations was secondary to the real work of medicine. Maya chose her words carefully, explaining her passion for combining clinical excellence with social advocacy. By the end, she sensed a shift, a grudging respect in their nods, but also the unspoken question of whether she would fit in. Now, as the tires of her SUV crunched over gravel, Maya felt each of those moments echo in her bones. The cracked windshield was a small injustice, but it reopened old wounds. Yet she also felt the warmth of every mentor's encouragement, every patient's grateful smile, and every hard-won victory over prejudice. Those memories had forged her resilience. They had taught her that confronting bias required both unwavering professionalism and a willingness to demand fairness. When the hospital lights came into view ahead, Maya straightened her shoulders. The road behind her, filled with doubts, judgments, and midnight stops, had led her here, to the crossroads of healing and justice. She parked under the glow of the emergency wing's floodlight, stepped out into the humid air, and pocketed her keys with renewed resolve. Tonight's pullover had been painful, but it was also a catalyst. And like every challenge before it, Maya would transform it into another step toward change. One patient, one encounter, one community at a time. The following Wednesday morning, Dr. Maya Johnson arrived at the Brookfield County Sheriff's Department just before sunrise. Her Toyota Highlander packed tight with collapsible exam tables, rolling medical carts, and neatly organized bins of syringes, lancets, and stethoscopes. The asphalt parking lot was still damp with overnight dew, and the early light painted the sheriff's station brick facade in soft gold. Maya's heart pounded, not from the residual tension of her midnight pullover, but from anticipation. Today she intended to turn that confrontation into collaboration. Sheriff Willard Hayes emerged from the station's front doors, his star-shaped badge gleaming on his chest beneath the morning sun. He wore a short-sleeved uniform shirt this time, sleeves rolled up, his forearms dusted with the chalky residue of paperwork. Maya greeted him with a warm smile and held out a clipboard bearing a simple but bold header: Community Health Screening, Brookfield County. Sheriff Hayes, she began, voice steady and cordial. Thank you for meeting me. I'd like to host a free pop-up clinic right here in your parking lot. Blood pressure checks, glucose testing, flu vaccines. Many residents in your jurisdiction lack easy access to basic health care. Hayes folded his arms, eyebrows lifting as he studied the proposal. You want to do this here? He asked, nodding toward the empty lot. With deputies directing traffic and what else? Maya tapped the clipboard, where a roster of volunteer shifts and supply lists lay neatly typed. I'll bring all necessary equipment and staff. We have 5 nurses and 2 medical assistants ready. I'm asking the sheriff's department to provide space, help with crowd control, and a couple of deputies to assist with parking and line management. She met his gaze directly. This will build trust between the community and law enforcement, while delivering vital care. Hayes hesitated, glancing at the rows of patrol cars parked under the station's awning. The memory of their tense midnight encounter flickered across his mind. Her unwavering professionalism contrasted sharply with his earlier assumptions. Finally, he nodded slowly. All right, Doctor. You've got my support. We'll clear out half the lot, assign 2 deputies per shift, and I'll have dispatch announce it on the county radio. Relief and determination washed over Maya as she shook his hand. Within minutes, word was out. By mid-morning, orange traffic cones marked a clear entrance and exit. Popcorn-colored health screening banners fluttered from the station's facade, and deputies in reflective vests guided residents to parking stalls. Maya and her team unpacked their gear under a large white tent, rolling out sanitized tables and arranging chairs in socially distanced pairs. A long line of neighbors, farmers in well-worn overalls, retirees leaning on canes, young parents clutching toddlers, began to form, murmuring words of gratitude and curiosity. As the first patient, Mr. Thompson, a wiry tobacco farmer known for evading doctors, settled into the screening chair, Maya greeted him by name. She placed the blood pressure cuff around his arm, her touch gentle but assured. You've been away from the clinic too long, sir, she said kindly, watching the gauge climb. Let's get that under control. When the reading peaked at 160/100, Maya offered clear, actionable advice. Diet adjustments, medication management, and a follow-up appointment at the mobile van she'd park weekly near his farm. Watching from across the tent, Sheriff Hayes noted how patiently Maya explained each result. Never condescending, always respectful. A deputy approached him quietly. Sheriff, folks are really lining up. I saw Mrs. Reynolds from 2 miles south. Said she'd travel all day for this. Hayes nodded, pride softening his features. By noon, the clinic had served over 80 residents. The sheriff's deputies, initially stiff and uncertain, now moved with purpose, offering water cups bearing the sheriff's seal, guiding older patients to shaded benches, and chatting easily with Maya's volunteers. At one point, the station's front doors swung open, and the county commissioner strode out, eyebrows raised at the bustling scene. Maya welcomed him with a handshake, then guided him to the vaccination station, explaining how each flu shot helped reduce hospital admissions. The commissioner shook his head in amazement. As the sun dipped past its zenith and the line dwindled, Maya took a moment to stand beside Sheriff Hayes, surveying the transformed parking lot. Empty needle trays and discarded paperwork littered the tables, but the air buzzed with accomplishment. Hayes cleared his throat. Doctor, He paused, searching for words. I misjudged you. You've done more for this community in 6 hours than I've seen in years. Maya smiled, resting a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We all have a role, Sheriff. You opened the door. Many more will follow. In that shared acknowledgement, the cracked windshield and midnight doubts felt worlds away. Today had been more than a clinic. It had been the first true healing of a deeper divide. By mid-morning, the sheriff's parking lot had been completely transformed. A bright white canopy tent, stenciled Brookfield County Health Screening in bold blue letters, stood at its center, surrounded by folding tables draped in crisp white linens. On one table, rows of digital blood pressure cuffs and glucometers glinted in the sunlight. On another, trays of sterile syringes and small vials of vaccine lined up like sentinels. A colorful trifold poster board displayed charts of normal vital sign ranges, healthy eating tips, and contact information for follow-up care. Residents began to arrive in a steady stream. Mr. Jeb Carter, the tobacco farmer from 2 miles south, shuffled forward first, his weather-tanned hands gripping the chair's armrests as Dr. Johnson gently wrapped a cuff around his thick bicep. She explained every step. This gauge will inflate, then slowly deflate. Don't worry if it feels tight. As the cuff tightened, she knelt beside him, offering steady reassurance. When the reading registered 162/98, she noted it on his chart and leaned in, voice calm but urgent. That's higher than we'd like. Let's talk about reducing sodium and scheduling a follow-up. I'll refer you to Nurse Patel, who can help with nutrition guidance. Jeb nodded, gratitude softening his creased face. At the next station, a young mother named Alicia held her toddler, whose chubby cheeks flushed with nervous excitement. Dr. Johnson knelt to the child's level and produced a small teddy bear-themed bandage. This is our magic sticker, she said with a smile, applying it gently after administering a vitamin A shot. The boy giggled, clutching the plush toy, and Alicia exhaled relief. Thank you, doctor, she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. I've been worried about him getting sick this winter. Maya offered a reassuring nod and printed out an age-appropriate immunization schedule for the family's pediatrician. Meanwhile, deputies circulated at the edges of the tent, clipboard in hand, observing. Deputy Cruz paused at a table where Dr. Johnson was demonstrating proper glucose testing technique to a retiree in suspenders. Watch her hands, Cruz muttered to a fellow deputy. Steady as a rock. And she explains it so folks actually understand. He glanced at Sheriff Hayes, who stood nearby, arms crossed, studying the scene with a mixture of curiosity and something softer, respect. As the line wound past tables of cholesterol screenings and foot care stations for diabetic checks, Maya moved from patient to patient, never rushing. She paused to show Mr. Carter how to read food labels, to coach Alicia on soothing techniques for her toddler, and to remind an elderly woman in a wheelchair that walking even 10 minutes a day can make a huge difference. Volunteers in scrubs passed out water bottles stamped with the sheriff's seal, each bearing the tagline, Health is Community. Around noon, Sheriff Hayes stepped under the tent's fringe, hands in his pockets, and watched as a small crowd gathered for an impromptu mini-seminar. Dr. Johnson stood before a flip chart, illustrating the ripple effect of vaccination on herd immunity. Her voice, clear, compassionate, authoritative, carried over the hum of conversation. When 90% of our community is immunized, we protect the most vulnerable among us. Heads nodded, questions flew. Hayes listened as she fielded inquiries about vaccine safety with data and empathy, never once resorting to intimidation. The transformation was unmistakable. Deputies who had arrived stiff and uncertain now chatted easily with residents, laughing as they handed out healthy snack recipes. Neighbors who had avoided the sheriff's presence in the past now shook his hand, thanking him for arranging the event. And as the last volunteer packed away the foot care kit, Hayes approached Dr. Johnson under the tent's shade. I've watched a lot of medical events, he said, voice low, but I've never seen one run with this level of dignity and community spirit. He paused, searching her eyes. You've shown us what real service looks like. Maya smiled, tucking a stray hair behind her ear. The clinic's hum faded behind them, replaced by the steady buzz of a county united in health and in respect. The last rays of the afternoon sun filtered through the tent's fabric as Dr. Maya Johnson finished packing away her stethoscope, each click of her rolling cart echoing softly against the asphalt. The bustle of residents, volunteers, and deputies began to fade into the hum of departing cars. At the edge of the tent, Sheriff Willard Hayes lingered, his uniform shirt unbuttoned at the collar and sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing the calluses of years behind the patrol wheel. He watched Maya secure the medical supplies into crates, the same steady hands that had guided syringes and blood pressure cuffs, now hesitating before the moment he knew must come. Hayes cleared his throat, stepping forward so that Maya looked up, surprise flickering across her features. He straightened, placing a manila envelope on the folding table. Inside, a typed letter formally withdrawing the midnight citation from her record. But it was not the paper that weighed heavy in the air. It was the unspoken admission behind it. "Dr. Johnson," he began, voice low and unsteady, "I owe you more than my support today." He paused, meeting her eyes directly for the first time since they'd met that cracked windshield night. "When I pulled you over, I judged you on nothing more than assumptions. Your age, your race, the time of night. I treated you like a problem to be solved instead of a physician dedicated to saving lives." Maya set down the last crate and folded her arms, waiting. The soft chirp of a volunteer's radio punctuated the silence. Hayes rubbed his neck and continued, "Watching you here, seeing the way the community responded to your compassion and expertise, I realized how wrong I was. I hurt your credibility and your trust in this badge." His hand hovered over his heart. "I'm deeply sorry." He withdrew a small, polished sheriff's badge pin, a commemorative token bearing the county seal, and held it out to her. "I can't undo the past," he said, "but I want to stand beside you moving forward. Will you accept this as my pledge to treat every person with the respect they deserve?" Maya reached out and took the pin, her fingers brushing his. The metal felt cool, its weight a promise rather than a reward. She nodded slowly, voice soft but firm. "Thank you, Sheriff. I accept. And I'd like to invite you and your department to partner with my clinic regularly. Let's build a healthier community together." As they clasped hands beneath the tent's fluttering edge, the remaining deputies and volunteers looked on, no longer as mere onlookers, but as witnesses to a bridge being built between law enforcement and the people they serve. The asphalt underfoot felt steadier now, each footprint a testament to what can happen when accountability meets compassion. Early Saturday morning, the county fairgrounds buzzed with life. Rows of brightly colored tents stretched across the grass, bearing banners for everything from homemade preserves to livestock judging and local art. But at the far end of the midway, under a large blue and white marquee emblazoned Brookfield County Health and Community Expo, a different kind of energy rippled through the crowd. Dr. Maya Johnson arrived before dawn, accompanied by her core team of nurses and medical assistants. They began unfurling tables laden with vision charts, foot care kits, dental hygiene pamphlets, and stacks of informational flyers about hypertension management, diabetes education, and preventive screenings. Nearby, Sheriff Willard Hayes directed deputies as they erected a wooden ribbon, Green for Health, strung between two polished posts bearing the county seal. By 8 a.m., the gates opened. Families poured in, children dragging excited parents toward the petting zoo, while others converged on the Health and Community Expo tent. A farmer in mud-spattered overalls carried a mason jar of pickles, pausing to have his blood pressure checked. A retired schoolteacher asked Maya for advice on managing her cholesterol. Maya knelt to offer gentle encouragement and a personalized diet plan. Volunteers rifled through bins of donated eyeglasses for those in need of nearsighted lenses. At 10 a.m. sharp, the county commissioner tapped a microphone. "Welcome to our inaugural Health and Community Expo, a partnership between Dr. Maya Johnson's clinic and the Sheriff's Department." The crowd applauded as Hayes stepped forward, badge gleaming on his uniform. Maya joined him, stethoscope draped over her shoulders. "Today," Maya began, her voice steady over the PA system, "we celebrate not only medical care, but the bonds that form when we work together." She gestured to the deputies helping children test their vision and to the nurses teaching foot care to elderly farmers. Health is more than treatments or prescriptions. It's trust, respect, and shared responsibility. Hayes took the scissors and, with Maya at his side, snipped the ribbon. A cheer rose as the tent's entrance opened wide, revealing a line of fairgoers, eager for free flu shots, dental screenings, and nutritional counseling. Local news cameras rolled. The anchor's voice crackled. "This innovative collaboration is transforming county wellness." As the morning sun climbed higher, snapshots captured Hayes and Maya examining a toddler's vaccinated arm, counseling a young mother on prenatal vitamins, and high-fiving a veteran who just completed a diabetic foot exam. Each handshake, each shared smile, echoed the journey from suspicion to solidarity. When the crowds thinned at noon, Hayes found Maya by the eyeglasses table. He stood quietly, watching a deputy help a steelworker try on reading specs. Maya looked up, meeting his gaze. For the first time, he was truly speechless, his respect and gratitude shining louder than any words. And in that pause, amid the hum of community life restored, both recognized the real victory. A healthier, more united county built on empathy, accountability, and the healing power of partnership.